We're having a presenter, she's a journalist, she's a broadcaster.
I wonder how she discovered that she wants to do that, right?
How she balances it all. Where does she find the energy?
But you look perfect
Oh,
now.
thank you. I'm happy. Hello to you and welcome to Visionaries. Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to be in your company. Our guest today is the amazing Romy Titus. Okay, so she's a businesswoman, she's a radio and television broadcaster, she's a mom, and she's an activist. I have no idea where she finds all the time, and she managed to squeeze us into her schedule. Romy, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Yanda. Thank you for having me.
Today we get to learn about the brand, or the person at least behind the brand. That's exciting. How are you feeling? First, I must always check.
Always good.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange
Yeah, on
not
the
to be
other side
sitting
of the
there.
interview.
And I'm missing my earpiece, but comfortable nonetheless.
Listen, it's such a pleasure to chat to you. Tell me now, let's go right back to the beginning. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Cape Town and raised a little bit in Cape Town, a little bit in Namibia. So we moved every 4 years because my dad was an epidemiologist. So 4 years, in Cape Town, and then we moved to Namibia for about 4 or 5 years, and then we moved back to South Africa. So just as I made a good friend at school, we moved.
Man, you have to pack.
But ever grateful for the moving. I think it's broadened my horizons, you know. I don't have that Matchbox feel. I love travel and I freelance. So the ever daunting unknown is forever exciting, and I link that back to my childhood.
Yeah, it makes you very flexible and I think also very relatable. So you're able to make friends wherever you go.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. I
which
don't
is a
make
good
friends
trait.
very easily. I don't. I'm Capricorn, and the friends that I do have, I've probably had since primary school.
Really?
Yeah. But still liking, the unknown.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just broadened my horizons in terms of culture, diversity.
Yes.
I love that. Whenever I travel, I'm not really looking for the touristy aspects of things, but I'm looking for to connect with people.
Yes,
That's it,
yes.
and to hear their stories.
Yeah, I love that. Now let's go back to the people aspect. Tell me a bit more about your loved ones. You told us about your dad. Who else was in your immediate circle growing up?
My grandfather, he's my hero. He only had a standard 3 schooling, and he literally taught me so much. Gardening. So I know so much about gardening thanks to my granddad. He was a boxer as well. He couldn't take it on professionally, and he boxed for the Peninsula Harriers in Cape Town. And then he met my grandma, and my grandma was like, boxing or me? Well,
he made the
needless to
right
say,
decision.
he chose my grandma. But he just was my hero. There was nothing my grandpa couldn't do, couldn't fix. MacGyver. If you know MacGyver, who could fix anything and everything. If my Barbie's arm fell off, my granddad was able to put it together. If my favorite shoe said hello, he was able to glue it back together,
Very resourceful.
And I guess he was the glue of our family. And sadly, he passed away when I was in matric. It was very hard because he passed away pretty much during that prelim time.
Sure.
And I miss him dearly. I really do. I can talk about him without crying, So I've come a long way, but I miss him. I miss my daughter, his granddaughter, and him not getting to meet her.
Yeah, that's always the hardest.
Being the first host of the TKO magazine show on the SABC, female host, it's boxing.
You can't share that
and
with
my
him.
grandpa's not in my corner. So I did it in honor of him. And a lot of the things actually I still do with him at the back of my mind, telling me that I can do absolutely anything and everything.
My goodness. Mom, siblings?
So mom, dad, they're divorced. I'm still in touch with both of them. I have an older sister, younger brother. So I'm sandwiched in the middle there. I'm the president of the Middle Child Association.
Apparently middle children are the ones who are most likely to lead a revolution.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
So
That
you think you fit that category precisely?
Hands down.
Tell me about school now. What sort of student were you?
Hardworking, rebellious, determined. That was pretty much me. I went to a convent.
Oh boy.
So that was in Namibia, the Holy Cross Convent, and I was probably in detention every weekend because I
would never tell.
So many questions. So I would ask questions like, why is it that we celebrate the 25th of December as Jesus' birthday? And I would be in detention. I think it's why I ask questions for a living, but I don't think my parents ever understood, because I was forever in detention. You believe the teacher at the end of the day. You know, Romy's rebellious, she doesn't listen, she's just a menace. And it was really just me being misunderstood and asking questions. You know, I was interested, and within that environment, you weren't supposed to be, you know. So I always think a little bit misunderstood, because then we leave Namibia, we come to South Africa, I start my high schooling, and it's a complete opposite, where all of a sudden teachers
embrace that inquiring mind.
That's it, like me, you know.
Tell me about journalism now. How did you venture out into that?
I was born a journalist.
Yes.
I often say journalists are born. There was a curfew of 8 o'clock in the Titus household, so it's either you are going to watch the news or you're going to sleep. And I didn't want to go to sleep.
And so there you were.
The rebel in me. So there I was, sitting right next to my dad, watching Rian Kreywagen read the news.
The legend himself?
Yes.
The legend himself.
And I used to sit there staring at the television thinking, anything is better than going to sleep right now, but also not understanding at a young age what is going on here. You know, who is Boutros Boutros-Ghali at the end of the day, and what is this man talking about? But I also knew that he commanded so much respect in the Titus household that 8 o'clock, you can literally hear a pin drop in our house because the news is on. So I sat there thinking, I like this, you know. I like that this entire household comes to a standstill, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to read the news, and I'm going to make the Titus household come to a standstill.
Goodness.
And I did.
You went to study journalism?
I went to study journalism, but I read the news. Well, it changed to 7, and I brought the Titus household to a standstill, and everybody watched me.
Come on now. I like it.
Deliver the news.
When I got to know you. So, you know, as an anchor, hard news journalist, etc. And then I turn around and you're doing sport. Tell me about that transition and why that happened.
I'd seen too much. I was tired of the dead children, the raped children, the dead bodies, the minced meat people, and I've been in the midst of it all. I'd had enough. I know journalism is still what I want to do, but there's got to be a release here where I'm telling a different story.
Agreed.
I'm not telling a story of death and somebody's father, grandfather, loved one has died. I'm telling a story that unites a nation, that brings people together. And sport is that. Think about Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs and how full a stadium is, and everybody's making a noise. And we have a winner and a loser, and I go home. And it's a good story to tell.
On the keeper! 1-1!
And you have done exceptionally well in sport. It is still a male-dominated industry, and we were having this debate with some of my colleagues who say, oh, there are a lot of women who are still making it, not at the rate men are. So for you to go in there, and I see the determination, gung-ho, saying, I'm going to make it in this industry. Tell me a bit about where you got that chutzpah.
Tell me I can't do something and I'll show you how well I will do
it,
you know. The late Mzimasi Mgebiza, who worked here at the SABC, was the person that told me, you'll read the newspaper from the back to the front. And we used to work together at another broadcast, and I said to him, never, that's never going to happen. I will be a hard news journalist until the day I die. And he's the one who hired me and gave me my first, you know, gig as a sports person. And I remember just thinking, no, this is not for me. I can't do it. But the more I picked up a book, I taught myself football and the rules. I read a lot. Then I realized I love Formula One. I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. If only he just knew that wherever he is. And I liked it. And I liked the feel-good side of it, you know, where you're not telling that bad story. So he was the one.
Because that's also important. You know, it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, you can't all day, every day just be in this doom and gloom. There's got to be a silver lining. And he gave me sort of that push, and I guess the rest is history. It is male-dominated, but I'm tired of that story, Ayanda. I'm so tired of, oh, it's male-dominated. How do you survive? I survive just like a man does. We've got to work 10 times harder. I mean, look at Serena Williams, for example, you know, and her story, and just women that are under the microscope constantly. It happens. It's there. But I want us to tell the story of, yes, I'm a woman. I support women in sport. And eventually we will be talking about it being women-dominated. Or 50-50. Yeah,
I can't agree with you more. And of course, the accolades followed, Fast and Furious. the one I can remember is the Lorries. Is it the Lorries?
The Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. Okay, so we'll talk about all those accolades because, as I mentioned, they are plentiful. All that and more in just a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Just before the break, we got to meet Romy, the broadcaster. Let's meet Romy, the activist now. Romy, tell me a little bit about Babies Behind Bars and how you got to start that initiative.
It found me, actually. I was doing a story, actually, for Primetime News on children who were having a Christmas party in prison. And I remember going to the story, kicking and screaming, literally, because as a junior journalist, you never get the lead story in the newsroom, and that is really what I wanted. And went there and, you know, kind of dragging myself, but, you know, very surprised by the time I get there. So it's a Christmas party for about 30 children and their moms, and there's one cream cake. And I'm just thinking, Christmas at my house is filled with family, food,
days.
that's it.
Yes.
You eat until you cannot anymore. Presents, I mean, there's the odd family scuffle, you know, here and there, but it is just a day filled with joy. And the Christmas party I was expecting to walk into versus the one I know is completely different. There was a 5-year-old boy at the time in the prison, and they played some mandoza for him, and he got down, man. He was just the cutest little boy on the planet. That's you got it.
Yes.
I picked him up and played with him, and he was fine. And then the male cameraman I was with picked him up, and he would just go ballistic. Then I would play with him, and he's fine. And then the male cameraman would pick him up, and he'd go ballistic. And I was like, stop pinching the child. What are you doing? And the head of the female section said, he doesn't know what a man is. Because he's in the cell with all these women day in and day out.
Sure.
The only sort of interaction he has with the male is one of the inmates coming over on a Thursday from the male section in an orange overall to mow the lawn. And that is what he knows a man to be. So I went home, filed the story, but I just thought, you're going to grow up to be a man. How do you not know what a man is, you know? And I can remember just years going by. So wondering about the 5-year-old boy in the prison and wondering why is no one doing anything about children behind bars. And I think we're very quick to say, why is no one doing anything? And very slow to check ourselves. And on my couch that day, that's how the idea was born. And I said, well, I can do something. So I opened up my garage. I put on Facebook, how do you start a nonprofit organization? I'm taking donations, and people came with donations. Eventually, my double garage was filled to the rafters with anything and everything for children ages 0 to 5. And that was really the birth of Babies Behind Bars. I remember a friend of mine saying, please don't cry. Don't cry when people bring donations. But I cried because it was just an idea, you know, that I put on my Facebook status, and it had a ripple effect, and people have hearts, you know. There is that good in mankind still, as much as we don't believe in it, for my double garage to be full. And then my car had to sleep outside, and eventually we moved to a storage. And it's almost 12 years now in the making.
My goodness, 12 years.
12 years on.
And I think something that's also quite important is that those early years, because children are with their parents behind bars for the first 2 years?
2 years
2
now.
years,
Yeah,
yes.
so they've brought it down from it was 0 to 5, and now it's 0 to 2. Because one of the psychiatrists realized that kids remember too much. So you're learning the foul language. At one of the prisons that I went into, there's a 2-year-old that can smuggle a note from one section to the other section. And obviously, they're not going to stop her. She's a baby. But she knows exactly where she's going with that note, and they showed us. And it's just startling that that is the environment that you're growing up in. And you're living like a jailbird because you are behind bars.
So what do you do now? What are some of your interventions?
So Babies Behind Bars, we try and look after the basic needs of children while they're in prison, ages 0 to 2. Sometimes family members are able to support their loved ones that are in prison. A lot of the times there's foreign nationals in prison who don't have loved ones, and that's where the charity comes in. So anything, so food, formula, clothing. It's summer now, so make sure they've got summer clothing. Winter, it's icy cold in there. So warm blankets, you know, those woolly little cute baby grows, educational toys for those fine motor skills that you talk about. So just say basic human needs for them to be happy and healthy while they're behind bars.
You started Babies Behind Bars when you were not a mom. You're a mom now.
Yeah.
Has that changed your outlook at all?
I think I've always had sympathy for the mothers behind bars. I always said I was a mom to 800 children before I came mom to one. And it shifts your perspective. I mean, I have empathy for those women because
it's hard.
If you've got to knuckle down and literally have your baby in your cell by yourself and it happens like that, then it happens like that, you know? And I've had everything. I mean, eternally grateful for the way I brought my baby into this world, the way I wanted, everything like clockwork, you know, and to think that a mom in prison doesn't have the luxuries. There's no baby shower. No one is bringing you anything. And if you do go into labor, the rule in the prison is everybody starts knocking on the door so that it makes a noise and it starts echoing, you know. And that is the call to say someone is in labor.
Your work has been recognized. I know you went to the Mandela Washington Fellowship as a result of that, traveled to the US, back here at home, the Ubuntu Awards.
Please welcome Ms. Romy Titus to accept the Ubuntu Award on behalf of babies behind bars.
There's a beautiful pic of you and your dad, I believe it was. You're heavily pregnant, but you know, you're one of those ladies who are just so gorgeous. You can hardly tell if someone is pregnant or not because you look just absolutely flawless.
With my nose out here.
My goodness.
The nose is a dead giveaway.
How did that feel to recognize the fact that, you know, this little hunch that I had has brought so many people close to, you know, the plight of women behind bars and the children thereof, but also that the world is recognizing this little effort?
It's not why I do it.
Yeah.
I really don't do it for any recognition. I do it because a greater part of me loves giving back. It's that smile that you get at the end of the day that keeps me going, and not so much the accolades. Sure. It's nice to be recognized. It always is, but it puts a lot of pressure on me. When I left the Ubuntu Awards and I gave birth to my daughter, I knew that this is something that isn't going to stop here.
Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Did you know that right now, somewhere in South Africa or Africa, a woman could be giving birth to her baby behind bars?
Africa is big, it's vast, it's wide, and for a lack of a better description, South African prisons are pretty well equipped. Yeah. There's a greater need out there.
Exactly.
So I actually upskilled myself as a doula in order to give back to women in prison. A doula is a birth support. So to be able to do a rehabilitation course so that moms in prison can assist each other when they give birth in the event that help doesn't come when it is supposed to. And I think that's the pressure I put on myself, because you're being recognized and it's great, but there's so much to do that I just want to do. I really just like, help me help you, just to make life in prison for children better. That's all. I'm not asking for anything in return. This is my life's purpose.
It is massive. The ripple effect is far and wide. So the next question, I suppose, is where to now? We'll find that out in just a moment. Stay with us. Hello to you. If you've just joined us, look, you've missed out. I'm sorry for you, but you're just in time to find out about Romy's future prospects. Romy, but before we go there, I just want to know, you know, of all these wonderful things that you've happened to achieve in your life, what's been some of the biggest challenges?
Challenges? If I think about the charity, it has to be getting access. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a prison, and so all these dreams and big plans that I have in order to get them going behind prison bars is a big challenge. Already you did say, I mean, women in the industry, in sport, that in itself is a challenge, because you continuously have to prove that you belong there, you know.
Good enough.
And I guess charity-wise, money. You know, in order for a charity to keep going, money is a big challenge. And at the end of the day, I do work with criminals and their children, and it's not exactly sexy. It's not like, you know, you're going to attract big bucks. with the prison population. So I'd have to say those are some of the challenges, you know, just people not having the belief or entrusting that this money is going to go towards the children and not so much the moms, because the children are really innocent at the end of the day. They didn't ask to be behind bars. They live a harsh, hard life, and in order to soften the blow, I'm still there. I'm still there, and it's going to take long. It has taken long, and I'll continue pushing until it is that I get to where I want to be.
And what keeps you going? You know, both running the nonprofit, being in this workspace, being a mom. What really keeps you going?
The words "No, mommy." That's my daughter Hera, who's a year and 7 months, and everything is "No, mommy." She's got the brightest little smile, and everything I do with her in mind. She lights up my world. And on a really stressful day, when I go home and I play, and I just think, there's a little miracle of a person bouncing around here. She is just my little angel, really. She lights up my path, and there's purpose.
Your future prospects when it comes to work, what do you still hope to achieve?
I want to move into the documentary space. I want to tell the stories of women who are behind bars. You know, a lot of times you think, you killed somebody, you're there for a purpose and a reason, which yes, they are. I mean, there's also those who are wrongfully convicted, you know. I want to tell a different story. I want to hear their stories. I want to hear criminals uncovered, for a lack of a better description, but there are rich stories in there. And then just to venture into Africa and visit every single prison that houses moms and babies and be the difference. That is really my vision. That is my vision.
You have your work cut out for you.
I do.
What do you do to relax?
I love bathrooms. I love bathing. I revamped my bathroom. It's about bubble baths and Epsom salts and this mask and that mask.
And then you hear, no, mommy.
And you're just like, it was my moment of peace. And I always say, I need just a moment of privacy. You know, that's my line. And going to the spa when I do have a moment, just for a good massage, that is me time. That is something I really, really enjoy.
Just to recharge. Something else that you told us about is this little Bible that you have here. I want you to tell me a bit more about it. It is rather tiny, so I'm going to try and hold it.
Yeah.
There we go, so you can get a good look at it. Tell me about this little Bible and why you carry it everywhere.
I'm not too sure what bridge is over there, but I envision it to be the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, right on the cover. And New York is my favorite place. So it might not even be, but in my head, that's what it is.
Yes.
A colleague of mine, I really like to get to know the colleagues that I work with frequently, because I think there's a synergy between us. For me to understand you and you to understand the next person, especially on outside broadcasts. And after I did a show once, I don't know what I was chatting to my colleague about. And we were talking and he leaned over and he had this in his hand and he gave it to me. And I kind of thought it a little bit odd at the time, but it was linked to what we were talking about. And he said, well, this is for you. And thank you for all the good chats always after our shows and for making time to chat to me. No one ever chats to the camera person. No talent ever really chats to the camera person. And I said, well, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be on air. And so this is a team collective. It's not just me sitting here being high and mighty and you're being minuscule, because it's not. And he gave me the Bible, and it's lived in my wallet ever since that day. I don't work with that cameraman anymore, but it hasn't made the money multiply either.
No miracle money?
But it's my little bit of grounding, of faith. Whenever I open my wallet and I see it, to remember why I'm here, what is my purpose, and just to keep your feet firmly on the ground, even though my head is in the clouds, you know, never to let my feet off the ground. So that is my little reminder. And just every now and then, I do open it and just read some random something, you know, when the days get dark and the friends are few. But it's my little bit of God I carry with me in my bag, in my wallet, every day.
So what would you say is your life purpose?
To give back. It's not about me. It's really about those smiles at the end of the day on those children's faces. And if it is that I change their life, however small, I have fulfilled my purpose.
You know, when you speak about children, I think of how free they are, how energetic they are, how, you know, they have no inhibitions. So I see you, you're always well put together, you're always, you know, just right. I wondered to myself, you know, do you ever put your foot, you know, out of place in any way? Most embarrassing moment for you?
Most embarrassing moment was, I was about 19, 20, my first live show on television. I was told, this is camera 1, 2, 3, this means cue, off you go. And that was pretty much my introduction to live TV, and off I went. And I read the news and I read the news and I read the news, and eventually the auto cue died and I looked down at my script and I hadn't kept time. So I'm on story like 15 and it's still saying hello and welcome.
Yes.
And then I look down, and remember the whole Titus household is watching, my granny included. And I said a word which I cannot repeat.
Oh.
And then I looked down.
Is it a bleep word?
Yes.
Beep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the whole of South Africa heard that, and I went beat red. And shuffled, found my place and continued like
where were we?
Nothing was wrong. So that has to be my most embarrassing moment. I don't ever want to pull that tape and look at it, you know, but yeah, It goes down in
Look, I'm
history.
sure you made fluffing look amazing, as you would. Thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us today.
Thank you,
I mean, your
Ayanda.
story is just such an inspiration of how you just didn't just focus on yourself and your own success and your progress, but you shared yourself with the world, which is something that's absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
Long may that last, and may we learn to do the same in our small area of influence as well. So let's leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again at same time, same place. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
So in this harsh world, my mantra every day is to be true to who I am, not to lie to myself and not to give up on my dreams. Those dreams you have, well, go out there, be fearlessly yourself and go in pursuit of your wildest dream. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.